What is up guys, it is Jib Rules back with another video, and that might have been the first ever time I've done an actual intro on this channel. Welcome back to another one of these videos where I'm trying to get you to sleep. So forget liking the video, forget subscribing, forget commenting, just try and fall asleep to this video. In this episode, I've compiled some of the best moments on the Jib Rules channel when talking about fashion in football, whether it's from football boots to undergarments to what certain players wore on the pitch. These are all my favorite moments from the start of the Jib Rules channel to now. So let me know what your favorite part of the video is, or if I should have included something else. And of course, I know you guys eventually like these compilations, but don't worry, there will be an actual proper 20-minute video on Sunday. I just want to feed you guys more content, and I've made a brand new decision to make this series of videos, all the ones that put you to sleep, into some sort of podcast. So more of a long form, less worrying about editing. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy it and stay to the end of the video for kind of an update on the channel. Now, growing up, football boots were always a big thing. You wanted your favorite players' football boots for the new school term. It was essential, and for those that didn't really have the new boots, they would kind of get ridiculed. Not on a bullying thing, but more on a jokey way. Like, you're really rocking Carbrini football boots, them orange banana looking boots, and you're rocking it. Back in the day, football boots were a part of my daily attire. It didn't matter where I was going, the dentist, school, to my nan's, to my friend's house. Like, I didn't know what an Air Force One was until about 14 years old. But in recent years, the football boot culture has completely died. And that's because the two GOATs, they're finishing up their work. So before I talk about my nostalgia on football boot culture, let's just go over quickly some football boots from over the years. Puma Kings, notoriously rocked by the man himself, Pele. Self-claimed as the greatest footballer of all time, he has apparently scored 4,000 goals, but only 22 are caught on camera. You know, I don't know if he's the greatest. Only the people that are in his age bracket can tell me if he's the greatest. But baller nonetheless, and these boots have gone down in history. Adidas Copa Mundial, with the likes of Zidane, Beckenbauer, and even Maradona rocking this boot. This silhouette of boot is timeless, really. This boot has just stayed with us throughout the years. With the Puma King, I haven't seen someone rock a Puma King since Pele himself. Adidas Predators. Now, Adidas Predators were my awakening to knowing what a nice football boot looked like. My uncle had a pair of these that were white and gold, and man oh man, were they scrumptious, man. You could ping a pass in these. You know, I didn't have the privilege to wear them boots. Clearly I was like size 3 when he had these. Obviously I was a kid, but these looked amazing. Of course, David Beckham was famously known for rocking these boots, but a bunch of other players rocked them too. These have been around. The Predator. Now it's kind of an outdated name. Nobody really wants to rock a Predator named football boot. You know, what you got on? I got the Predators. Whoa, okay. I'm rocking Superflies. You're rocking Predators, yeah? Okay, cool. Nike Tiempos. A Tiempo is perfect, you know, for a controller of the play. And I remember back in the day when I switched positions, you know, obviously I used to play football. I remember switching positions from a winger to a fullback. You know, I was playing left back, and that meant I had to change boots. I went from wearing Mercurials to rocking Nike Tiempos. And it was this one game where my manager said to me, Jib, you know, you got to fill in at left back. And that day I actually forgot my football boots. And the manager himself took his boots off, which were Nike Tiempos, black and white, put them on me, and I played left back that game and had a great performance. And famously, they were worn by Ronaldinho, popularized when he made that commercial for Nike where he hit the crossbar about 5 billion times with the boots on. Adidas F50s, these were worn by the likes of Lionel Messi and Robin, left-footed masters, the ones that would cut in and bang it in. Technical ability was off the charts when you wore these boots. The Nike Mercurial, first popularized by R9 and then taken over by Cristiano. This line has been dominated by these two players. Obviously other players have worn Mercurials and had their own Mercurials now, but these are the two players that revolutionized this boot. From the likes of a young Cristiano Ronaldo who was thriving in the Premier League wearing the Mercurials that were half red and half silver, all the way to the red CTR 360s, which I used to see Fabregas balling out with for Arsenal when I was growing up watching football. And I know for a fact that most people that claim that football boots are dead have this same feeling, a feeling that they just associate a specific boot with a player, tying it like a memory. But nowadays it's not like that, because the players that we used to see wearing our favorite boots are at the back end of their careers or even out of the game completely. Football itself has shifted and we no longer have any need to have the best boots in the game. You know, no one really cares anymore because the standard of boots is so high. Boots that you can get now for less than £50 still provide you with enough, resources to get about on a football pitch. You no longer have to save up your pocket money to buy these £200 boots that were the only good ones in stock. Back in the day, saving up money to buy Nike Magistas when they dropped. Bro, it was hard, man. It was hard. I was going on AliExpress and maybe I bought some fake Magistas. I did buy some fake Magistas. They were light blue. I was wearing light blue Magistas and they felt like I was wearing scissors on I was just chopping up my toes. Now in January 2024, Adidas decided to nuke the footballing world by dropping a new version of the Adidas Predator, inspired by the 90s design of the boot. And this decision had me left speechless. Adidas really went out and dropped a football boot called Predator in 2024. This is crazy. But Adidas didn't care. They doubled down on that nonce name and dropped the Adidas Predator and took the world by storm. They dropped a spectacular classic colorway of the boot, laced, laceless, and even with the fold over tongue. And players who were wearing them were starting to go crazy, with the main ambassador being Mr. Lightskin, Mr. I'm 20 but I actually act like I'm 30, Mr. Jude Bellingham. And that decision itself made the boot skyrocket even more. Since their initial release, Adidas have also dropped an all white colorway, an all black colorway, and every time they drop something new when regarding these boots, it brings me closer and closer to picking up my Nike Tiempos and throwing them in the bin. But I must resist the urge. I have £14 in my account. I wouldn't even be able to buy a left boot, let alone a pair of football boots. Currently, as football fans, I think it's safe to say that football boot culture is slowly but surely being revived. Kinda like you're in Black Ops 1, Zombies, Kino de Toten. You're playing split screen with your younger sister and she dies early into round 7. You gotta solo the entire round until you can revive her, but when you do, when that next round comes, they're going to come and there's going to be some special antics in that round 8, some combinations. You go left, I go right, you throw the grenade, you throw this, we're going to take down these zombies. Adidas dropped this Predator boot and has taken the world by storm, and more hype drops are coming, and I could just feel it. There's no actual speculation or rumors, I could just feel it in the air. Now in the world of football boots, no other model carries the amount of weight and cultural impact as the Nike Hypervenom. This was a Nike boot that ruled the 2010s era of football, a boot that went toe to toe with the Nike Mercurial and every Adidas model. And as Nike have rumored that there'll be a 2025 return of the football boot, I thought, let me come out of the shadows and talk about football boots once again. Now the Hypervenom was first introduced back in 2013, being Nike's successor to the Total 90 series, a series of football boots that had, a 90 mark on the side of it, indicating this sort of power scale that you could, strike a ball through. They took elements of that boot and formed the Hypervenom for a prospect called Neymar Jr. Neymar Jr. would be the face of the Nike Hypervenom, a player that had, made a move from Santos to Barcelona and was making waves in football. The Hypervenom's debut was nothing short of revolutionary. And with Neymar Jr. as the poster boy, I vividly remember that advert, the Hypervenom advert with the box, with the loading sign, and you saw this sort of venom symbol, and this box gets unlocked and it's the Nike Hypervenom. The snake skin on the boot that would help you enhance your control on the ball. A boot that was sleek, stylish, and spearheaded a new era. This was a model made for the guys that, you know, could control a ball in intricate areas of a pitch whilst also being as deadly as a snake. This was a stage in time where football boots were going through some sort of evolution, from the likes of the Total 90 and Adidas Predator that were focused more on the power aspect of the game, to, you know, the Nike Hypervenom and Adidas Adizero that were focused on, you know, speed, flair, and this ability to control the ball. It marked a new era and what was to come, because the 2010s were a bunch of fun, with some of the most generational players playing during this time. Whether you were a Neymar fan wearing Hypervenoms, a Ronaldo fan wearing Mercurials, or a Messi fan wearing Adidas F50s or Adizeros, this was a time where football boots were at the peak. And this was even before the likes of Magistas and Superflies were introduced a year later. But for me, the Hypervenom had it all, whether it was the first model, the second model, or all the different colorways that had me itching to get a new pair. The world had Neymar, but Premier League fans had the likes of Wayne Rooney, who used to ball out with the original Hypervenoms. We also had Daniel Sturridge that was, you know, making a name for himself at the likes of Liverpool and also playing in Nike Hypervenoms. And then you had Robert Lewandowski, who during his early times at Borussia Dortmund also was rocking Hypervenoms too. And if these clinical strikers weren't enough, Harry Kane, yes, Harry Kane, ambassador of Skechers, once upon a time was wearing Nike Hypervenoms. But with all these iconic boots that we've seen throughout the years, which ones do we associate with certain players the most? For some of you older heads that are watching these videos, you might associate, you know, the Puma Kings with the Maradonas, the Peles, or the Adidas Predators with the likes of Zidane and David Beckham. But for me, I didn't grow up in that era. I grew up in an era where I would see CTR 360 Maestries on Andreas Iniesta, a boot that had the word control in its name. This boot was designed only for midfielders. If you were a winger and you were wearing this, I'm chopping you down in an instant. But in the past, there's been football boots that have been so much more iconic based on the players that they were associated with, like Ronaldo and the Mercurial line. Cristiano Ronaldo is one of the only people in the world to have a lifelong contract with Nike. That means that even when this guy has passed away, God forbid, he will still have a line of football boots that Nike are continuously pushing out. And when Nike first dropped the Cristiano Ronaldo Mercurials, it changed the game for me. The Nike Mercurial Safaris. Have you ever seen a boot like this? This is what's going on. This is looking like some sort of Jumanji statement, but I like it because it's just so out there. Now, the Mercurial Vapor series was first launched in 1998, mainly associated with R9, but when Cristiano Ronaldo stepped onto the scene and got a sponsorship with Nike, he took this brand and took the Mercurials to a whole nother level, because we purely now associated these football boots, this line of football boots, with this guy. In particular, I have to talk about the Mercurial Vapor 9. This was a boot that I actually owned. You know, I had a version that was like yellow and pink. This entire line had eye-catching colors, from the ones that were just like all yellow with the black Nike tick. You also had the ones that were half silver, half red, the black and white pair with the yellow studs. But if you're talking about another line of football boots that perfectly represented a player, Nike Tiempos and Ronaldinho go hand in hand. Now, the Nike Tiempo is my favorite football boot ever. But when Ronaldinho first did the advert, he's given a box, he opens the box, and it's just a pair of white and gold Nike Tiempos. This shook the world, yeah? This made everyone think that they can play like Ronaldinho if they bought these boots. And it was wrong. None of these guys, come on, some guy tried to wear them. He was wearing them with jeans. And he tried to pull up to the five-a-side game with jeans, and you're wearing Nike Tiempos. If I'm keeping it 100, Adidas are on top of the boot game right now. With Jude Bellingham being the front man for the Adidas Predator and Nike ambassadors failing to impress, it looks like Nike have nothing they can do. But there is something that Nike could possibly do to get them back on top. And in my opinion, it's to revive the the T90 line. Now Nike T90s defied the 2000s era of Nike football boots. Worn by the likes of Luis Figo, Roberto Carlos and prominently Wayne Rooney, Nike eventually discontinued the line. Growing up, I was lucky enough to have 2 different pairs of these, and I don't know if they were authentic or not, but they sure did feel authentic when I was slapping in goals at break time, at lunchtime, and even during my midweek games. I own the Total 90 Laser 1s and also the Total 90 Laser 3s, and I swear, that was when prime striker Jib was in business. Initially, when these bad boys dropped, some of the most classic names in football, the types of players that our uncles would talk about, were promoting these boots. The likes of Francesco Totti, Lilian Thuram and Edgar Davids, just to name a few. All of the designs in the line had a prominent 90 on the boot, which slowly but surely developed into this foam target pad that would be used to strike the ball perfectly. I'm telling you, when a player wore these boots, their shot power automatically went to 90 plus. As soon as you connected with that pad to the ball, it was going top corner every single time. It felt marvelous. Pure heritage. The 2011 versions of these boots are the ones that I, recall having the most memories of, with a lot of strikers at the time wearing them and scoring bangers week in and week out. But of course, I was too young to really witness the early 2000s brilliance when these boots were first released. But just imagining a rebirth, a revival of this boot line is making me go insane. Now in 2019, Nike actually did revive this boot with a black and yellow edition of the T90 Laser. But unfortunately, despite the success of the boot's drop, they did not follow up with any other pairs. And I'm just imagining right now, imagine Haaland next season lacing up in a pair of rebirthed, revived Nike T90s. But it's all in Nike's hands. They hold the power to revive the shoe, and I think the fans would definitely be behind a proper revival. New drops, a new ambassador for the line. It has to be Haaland, and it would just be so hype. Jude having his own Adidas Predator line, Haaland having his own T90 line. Who's wearing Puma boots? Unless it's the Puma Kings, I'm not wearing poo in my boots. Poo. You want to wear poo on your feet? Now, of course, there's going to be people like, why is this guy not talked about Messi? Yes! The Adidas F50 Adi Zeros. I used to know a guy back in primary school that used to have light blue Adi Zeros for AstroTurf. This guy used to play like Messi. These boots just turned him into Messi. The close control. This guy was running about in the playground. 9 years old. Looking like Messi. I don't know where he is right now. He could be at La Masia. They were just perfect. They didn't have the most outworldly designs, but I think it was the player that wore it. The likes of Robben, the likes of Messi, the guys with the close control and the left foot to die for. Now, I feel like over the years, the culture and popularity of boots have just varied. From the highs of being in primary school to looking forward to every new release from Ronaldo and Messi, to the lows of what we have now. I can't name you a single football boot that has come out in the last maybe 5 years, and I swear. I remember in 2014, football culture exploded when Magistas and Superflies were unveiled to the world. Who would have thought you can put a sock on a football boot and make a sock football boot? It was revolutionary, and now since then we have every single boot in the world. It's just a sock boot now. Everyone's got one. There's low boots, there's sock boots, they're just everywhere. It used to be so hard to get a grips of these boots, and I remember I even bought a fake pair of Magistas. They were not real at all. They felt awful, but just because they looked like Magistas, just because they had a fake sock, I thought, you know what, I'ma play great in these. There's been great boots over the years that people have overlooked, like CR7 Safaris, and the whole of Neymar's Hypervenom line was amazing. But slowly but surely, no one really cares about these boots anymore because these players aren't at the forefronts of our screens. Until the likes of Mbappe and Haaland are breaking records week in and week out, nobody's going to be hyped for a football boot anymore. And look at the new release of Rashford's new Nike Mercurial boot. Bro, I could not care about a Rashford football boot. There aren't even a collective of elite players that are worth buying a football boot for anymore. Growing up, it was, if you played in Adidas, you liked Messi more, and if you played in Nike, you liked either Ronaldo or Neymar more. It was simple. It would divide the playground at lunch and break, and it was hilarious. It was fun. all the game, all the gimmick, and all what growing up is about. And that's why it kind of saddens me that football boot culture is dead. A lot of people are rocking vintage or retro football kits. I mean, every single day I go outside and I see a next human being wearing a different football kit. Now this trend is called blokecore, and right now you're probably thinking, Jib, why are you not wearing your retro AC Milan top? And if I'm being honest, it's in the wash. Blokecore has absolutely taken over the internet over this past summer, and I'm seeing every single person under the sun wear a different retro football kit. And it's amazing to see, because honestly, football has never been more accessible. We've got people like Lionel Messi signing for the MLS, bringing a whole new sport and a new wave of fans into America that they've never seen before. People that have never had their eyes on football are currently watching, and the sport that has been the most popular for decades now is becoming even more popular, all to the fact that more trends are happening. Ones that I've seen the most are like the AC Milan retros, the Inter Milan vintage ones, Argentina kits are popping, Brazil kits are popping, and because, you know, of where I live, retro Arsenal kits are the new wave. If I'm being honest, as someone that has always rocked a football top, I'm liking it, because back in the day, let's not forget, there was football boot core first. I was going to parties with Nike Mercurials on, and that was all the range back then. So if we want to do, okay, now we can do the football kit and then we wear what we want at the bottom, then calm. Now, as always, with a trend like this, you know, especially when it relates to football, there are going to be haters. There are going to be people that are just frustrated with the amount of models and Instagram people that are just rocking all these jerseys without even knowing, you know, the backstory to them. Well, you should be okay with that, man. You should, instead of being angry at these people, educate them. I feel like it's a really good thing to see a lot of people walking down the streets in football tops, because not only is it, you know, something that a lot of people can recognize, but it's a conversation starter. You might be waiting at a bus stop. You might be doing anything just alone. Go in a cafe, you know, in the line to get a coffee, and you see someone rocking a kit that you actually know and have some knowledge about. Even if they don't know, you know, anything about the team that they're wearing, it's a conversation starter. You can go up to them and be like, oh man, I really love this kit, and they're like, oh well, I have no idea what this team is. And then you're like, it's this team from this time, and the player that played there was this guy. Honestly, when I was first seeing it last year, like it was at the end of last year, I was like seeing a lot of people wearing football tops. I was like, why are we doing this? You know, it is so corny. But now I feel like it's nice. You know, it's nice. Football is a worldwide sport, so why are we trying to gatekeep people wearing football kits? It just doesn't make sense. But in reality, yeah, why are you wearing a Brazil kit if you can't do at least 10 kick-ups, bro? I can wear a Brazil kit. I've got some techers. I can show you right now. Pass me a ball. I'm doing but. Now, over the years, football has infiltrated and influenced worldwide fashion. And as you can see, I am well versed in this topic. Brands like Dior have collaborated with Kylian Mbappe, Balenciaga coming out with their own replica kits, and obviously the infamous Jordan and PSG sponsor. And let me not get started on this. It's all nonsense. Why am I going to buy a Balenciaga replica kit when I can just get an actual normal kit from a real team for like 1/5 of the price? But today I'm not talking about any of this nonsense, you know, Balenciaga football kits. No, I'm talking about real football, because without any of these stupid brands and collaborations, fashion has still been a big part of football. Let's think of PES or FIFA, player customization. When you're in the menus and you go right to the end and you start customizing the wristbands. This is the type of fashion that we need to talk about within football, because players have been putting their own spins on how they present themselves in games for many years now. Now, back in April 2022, former Newcastle winger Alan St-Maximin was given 2 charges by the FA for wearing a certain headband in 2 Premier League games, which kinda made him look like some form of Ninja Turtle while breaking defenders' ankles.
That's gotta be racist. There's no way
and it was definitely not the first instance that Alan Saint-Maximin had pulled something like this off. Early in his career at Newcastle, he brought along the Gucci headband that he used to wear for Nice in Ligue 1, playing a game against Man United with the headband on with a sticker just over the logo. Headbands have always just looked incredibly cool to me, and I bet some of you don't even know this, but young Cristiano Ronaldo used to wear a headband too. Young Cristiano Ronaldo was even rocking like a half cornrow, half headband sort of vibe. Like, Ronaldo had a lot of early pioneer moments when it comes to fashion on the pitch. Now, ankle cut socks are another trend that has ruled the world of football in recent years, alongside this newer trend of players cutting holes in their socks that I'm not even going to get into because this is genuinely diabolical. But I vividly remember when players started cutting their socks and wearing these true grip socks underneath. One day the football world just went snap and every player was doing it, and I was too. And it's still a massive part of the game to this day, where players will cut the socks given to them by the club and wear true socks underneath that have these grips so it makes your foot not slip in your boots. A young Neymar Jr. convinced me to start cutting my PE socks, you know, the ones that they give you to just wear, and I was cutting them and wearing true socks underneath during every PE session, and it got to the point where, you know, it wasn't even allowed. You couldn't cut your school uniform, and in my opinion this is still the best way to rock your socks. Now, wrist tape has also been a massive enigma when it comes to world football, with some claiming that it's used to just stabilize the wrists so players can brace themselves when falling and not get injured in that area. But for me, it's just fashion, you know, players were just wearing it for vibes. I don't think it provides that much stability for a player to wrap it on their wrist every game. I think it's also just the aesthetic. A prime Cristiano Ronaldo used to wear long sleeves and just a bit of wrist tape on one of his arms, and that was just the look back then. Suarez had the wrist tape, and Benzema even had this tape that was covering his fingers. These are clear examples that show that you can only be a baller to be wearing a form of wrist tape. And I'm not going to say it again, but if Eddie Nketiah started doing, you know, taping up the fingers and playing, I would personally come onto that pitch and I'm going to unwrap that tape and I'm going to send him back to the changing rooms. But players have not only used wrist tape to their advantage, one-arm long sleeves are an actual thing. Yeah, they are an actual thing that the comments told me about. Pogba went through an era of just wearing one under sleeve. And for me, the only thing that I'm associating this with is like NBA 2K, you know, with the player customization. Are you going to shoot a free throw with that arm? But I did some digging, and there have been occasions where players have wore one long sleeve and one short sleeve, mainly for their national sides, to, you know, not interfere with the colors on the pitch and them representing their country. Most of the time it's used to cover up tattoos. But these aren't the only things that players have had to cover. Sometimes they have to cover their faces. And not because they are as ugly as me. It's because they get injured. Sometimes they get like facial injuries, so they give them a mask. Players are usually given a carbon mask when they return from a facial injury, which allows them to play while the injury is still healing. And two players that I can think of off the top of the head are Son Heung-min and Victor Osimhen. Now, Son actually led Korea in the 2022 World Cup while wearing this carbon mask because he had a, you know, I think it was a fracture to his eye socket, and he was looking cold and carrying his team. And an even more recent example of this is Victor Osimhen, when he had this mask and actually scored 14 goals in the 18 that he wore the mask in. Now, high socks are one that I cannot believe I forgot. It's something that I actually used to do myself. High socks are an indication that a player has pace. When a player has their socks rolled above their knees, you know that you're about to get burned for pace in this game. The likes of Thierry Henry kind of pioneered this, but of course there's been many other players in history that were probably before my time. Kylian Mbappe is another one, and even Kairo Mitoma is one that I'm seeing in the Premier League that does this too. But there's many players that do this, and I don't know what it does really. I just feel like it's a thing that players do because, you know, they're rapid. I don't really see defenders pulling their socks up all the way to their thighs. Centre backs, imagine if I saw Van Dijk pulling his socks up to his knees. It would just look weird. And lastly, when it comes to fashion or drip in football, tattoos do come into play. But as someone who personally doesn't believe in tattoos or just inking or putting ink on your body, I'd like you guys to help. So let me know if there's any iconic tattoos that footballers have had and that have been visible during games that have really resonated with you guys. If there's a lot of suggestions, I might do a whole video diving deeper into fashion in football. Now, dyeing hair has always been a way that players have expressed themselves on the pitch. Being able to customize, whatever they look like, whatever their kit looks like, just by changing the color of their hair. And there's one guy that really pioneered this for me. He made his career known with statement pieces that were stuck to his head, and his name was Jib Rules. The former vibrant Liverpool forward had some of the craziest trims I had ever seen in my life. He had a bleach buzz cut, a mohawk, a Mohican, braids at one point. Obviously his career was shrouded by injury, but he was a talented player, and it was justified that he could pull off some of these haircuts because he was a real baller. And recent players also have been dyeing their hair too and having a great and not so great impact on their football career. Look at Saka when he randomly had highlights and played like doo-doo for 4 weeks straight.
Yeah, that brother's starving.
I look at the prime example of all, Paul Pogba. Pogba received backlash by, of course, Gary Neville and Man United fans for dyeing his hair 2 weeks before a Manchester derby. Now, back in April 2018, he dyed his hair blue during an international break because obviously Paul Pogba plays for France. But he completely forgot that when he came back, he would be facing Manchester City, who also play in blue. Now, this was obviously a conflict of interest, but despite all the criticism in the game, Man United actually won 3-2 and Pogba scored 2 goals. Maybe the dyed hair was good. Man City needed to win that game to actually be crowned as Premier League champions. But Man United said, nah, you can celebrate somewhere else. Pogba scored 2 that game and actually played really well. So let the guy dye his hair blue. Now, snoods were also a massive statement when ballers like Carlos Tevez, Samir Nasri and Yaya Toure started wearing them. A warmer for players' neck area, this was a perfect balance for players that were just getting adjusted to the English weather. They just put one of these on their neck and they were swift, smooth and ready for the game. But as quickly as they appeared on pitches, they were also swiftly taken off and banned as they were seen as dangerous. Players could probably, tug your snood and almost choke you out mid-game, according to FIFA president Sepp Blatter. And now you're probably used to seeing them in, your club's training videos in the winter months, where some of them wear it half up, their face. But man, oh man, it did look cool back in the day when players were just wearing snoods and scoring bangers. Now, low socks are also a statement piece. If your socks are low, then we know that you got some skills on show. Yeah, I just came with that off the top of the head. That's crazy as well. Boss right there. Wearing low socks before a game is just like asking the opposition to just Brexit tackle you into next week Tuesday. You have no protection whatsoever. The whole shin is showing, and sometimes these players don't even wear shin pads, but it's all for the aesthetic of low socks, being free, one with the grass. And as an onlooker, if I see someone with low socks, it just tells me that they are ready to just tangle up an entire team. But only silky players can rock their socks low. If Eddie Nketiah ever tried to pull his socks down, I would personally come onto the pitch and pull them up for him, because he is not that guy. Sometimes when I play 5-a-side, I like to put the socks low, but when it's 11-a-side and when I used to play, bro, them socks were up to thigh high, because I was not trying to get any studs in them legs, and I was not as flary on that muddy grass as I am now. The long sleeves with gloves. Before I even say anything, when I say long sleeves with gloves, who do you think of? Now, there's only one guy, an invincible man, that you should be thinking of, and his name is Thierry Henry, aka the GOAT, one of the GOATs. Now, this is where the drip just becomes immaculate. There was nothing better than seeing Thierry Henry long sleeves with the gloves on, because you knew that the team that they were coming up against, that Arsenal and Thierry Henry were coming up against, was going to get abused. You know, defenders were preparing after seeing Henry warm up, you know, rub his hands together with the gloves. They were preparing for 90 minutes of abuse, you know, genuinely. Sadness. It was sad for them. Match day walk-ins, where you'll see some of your favourite players walking into the stadium suited and booted up. Whether they've been styled by a professional or they just pulled out something in the wardrobe 20 minutes ago before making the drive down to the stadium, you'll see the best of both worlds. But for Hansi Flick's new look Barcelona, he decided to scrap this whole idea. From seeing groundbreaking outfits from Jules Koundé week in and week out, we've gone to this. The game's gone, or if we're being honest, the game is back. Hansi Flick said no, under my regime, the German regime, you guys are coming in with Barcelona pajamas. You're wearing training kits to bed, and you better wake up and come to the stadium on match day prepared. And if I'm being honest, I'm liking it, because I was sick and tired of seeing these funky outfits for these players to put up lackluster performances in the games that they had to play. Now they can be less focused on their wardrobe and more focused on the on-pitch activities. This season, with this new change, they're back better than ever, with all their players balling out. And I'm not saying anything, but maybe this Hansi Flick regime is doing them justice. Now, another part of fashion in football that I've previously dabbled in is masks on a football pitch. Now, there's nothing more memorable than wearing a mask on a football pitch. Players are mainly forced to wear carbon masks to protect themselves after suffering a facial injury, with the likes of Victor Osimhen, Lewandowski, Son Heung-min, many players donning the infamous mask. The mask that can make or break your season. Recently, we saw it break Mbappe's season and his form during the Euros, where he suffered an injury to his nose early into the tournament, then had to wear a mask for the rest of it, definitely influencing his performances. But some players do thrive when they are handed the mask. Something like masked LeBron, they go on this incredible run of form and display traits that you've never seen before. The likes of Osimhen went on a goal scoring run when he had to wear a mask a couple seasons back, and also Ronald Araujo for Barcelona. But one iconic masked moment that I have to talk about is Fernando Torres wearing the mask. When he suffered a facial injury during his time at Chelsea, he wore the mask during a Europa League final against Benfica in 2013, where he opened the scoring in that same game and led Chelsea to win. Just going to show that the mask doesn't always mean that you're going to play bad. Short sleeves and gloves combination. Immediately I associate it with bagsmen, guys that are playing striker for their team and are looking to deal some damage. Instantly the brilliance of Radamel Falcao pops into my head, and Sergio Aguero. These feisty strikers that definitely just put on these gloves because they wanted to intimidate opponents. Because there is no reason for a footballer to wear short sleeves and gloves. This definitely is not providing them with much warmth. Because imagine someone pulling up to the function, it's the midst of October, and he's just got on a short sleeve t-shirt and gloves. But if I'm being real, Sergio Aguero with the short sleeve Man City kit, the gloves, and that ugly Mohican has to be even more legendary, because this guy was feared in the Premier League, one of the best strikers in Premier League history, and he's rocking up to games looking like this. This is the kind of outfit you put on when your mum just starts letting you dress yourself. And of course there have been other players that have donned this famous look, the likes of Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and for a lot of the comments in my last video, they suggested Sabitzer for Man United, rocking the gloves, short sleeves and a man bun. This guy put all his attributes and all his effort into his appearance and put up some slumped displays for Man United during his time there. Another trait that we just have to delve into a little bit more is incredibly low socks. The likes of Jack Grealish, Kavica Kvaratskhelia and Dybala, all rocking extremely low socks and invisible shin pads. But they have every right to, because if you watch some of their silky skills in display, you would understand why. They don't need to try hard, they just roll up to the game and just start taking on players. I remember when Jack Grealish first stepped into the Premier League 2020 to 2021 and he was rocking the short low socks. This guy was balling week in and week out for Aston Villa on that left hand side, making a name for himself and ultimately earning him a move to Manchester City before things kinda went downhill, losing the flair and becoming more practical. But he had his time where he would just go in and out of defenders with ease. But again, I must reiterate, if I see a dead baller wearing low socks, sub him off ASAP. Now throwing it back to the 90s and the early 2000s with this one, oversized kits are something that I am missing in football. Mainly because of the lack of concern and technology back then, players were wearing oversized football kits, with all the best players in the world donning the baggiest of kits. George Weah, Maradona, Roberto Baggio, all these guys that were thriving in the Serie A. But it wasn't just the Serie A that were rocking these baggy kits, because I know a lot of Instagram accounts make you believe that, but the whole of the world were rocking baggy kits, mainly because the technology of just tailoring kits wasn't introduced yet. That's why to me a lot of vintage kits just look better than the newer ones, because they're more practical. Not for in-game footballing function, but for outside function. Now over the years, safety became more and more important, and also optimizing footballers' ability on the pitch. So we slowly but surely saw the development from having baggy kits to having tight tailored kits that would kind of stick to the skin. Because with these kits came many problems. Being held back when you're running at full pace because your kit was quite loose became a really big problem, with players of course getting injured. Now you're forced to play proper football and defend. Another trait from the older eras of football has to be footballers wearing jewellery in game. The likes of Maldini, who would tackle you into next week Tuesday, all whilst wearing a chain around his neck. Or Maradona, who would glide through your entire team, again whilst wearing a chain. But of course, speaking from nostalgia only goes so far, because if you're wearing a chain in game, that is such a safety issue. Just imagine a madman like Pepe playing in an era where some players were wearing chains around their neck. This guy would have grabbed that chain and slide tackled them in the same move. This is the same guy that kicked a guy about 8 times after making a tackle. So I thank the footballing gods for taking this out of the game. Another thing that we have to talk about is customized boots. When a footballer just goes out of his way and hits up the likes of Boots Plug on Instagram for a new customized pair of boots, I think that makes him a real brother. You know, a guy that really cares about the little things. You know, if anything, it's the little things that are getting him by. Or getting him high. It's the little things that get me by. I've seen the likes of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang don some Dragon Ball Z customized boots. Bro, that is cold and you can't tell me otherwise. We need to see more players rocking customized boots. Now the last piece of fashion within football that we have to talk about is managerial drip. From the likes of Pep Guardiola rocking Stone Island on the byline, to Arsene Wenger and his elaborate collection of puffer jackets over the years that he sometimes couldn't zip up. Managers have some of the biggest influence on fashion in football. But I need you guys to help me on this one. Comment some managers that just have some different drip, whether it's them actually in-game coaching their team or on the training pitch. And a quick shout out to all the clubs that just do these big brand collaborations. The likes of AC Milan crossing over with Off-White. We will look back in 20 years time and say that this is football heritage, because I know there's many people that hate it. So yeah, fashion in football is back and it's as iconic as ever. Comment anything that I missed out in this video, and if you enjoyed it, leave a like and subscribe. Thank you guys as always, and make sure you stay blessed, stay safe, and peace. Now the evolution of football is the reason why football boots used to look like that, because people didn't see football boots for just boots, they saw them as a representation of their favourite player. But nowadays we have moved into a different time where in the grand scheme of things there aren't that many amazing outstanding players that are in the primes of their careers that have boots that you actually want to wear. Nobody really wants to wear an Erling Haaland boot. But it's only because their legacies have just begun. They need to be at the top of football for kids to idolize them enough to buy a football boot with their name on it. Saka, you know, I have never in my life seen anyone wear a New Balance football boot because of Saka. And it doesn't take away anything from how good Saka is, because Saka is world class, Saka is brilliant, but he just doesn't have that pull. So in all honesty, the peak of football boots is a reflection on the development of the game. Now if you've gotten to this far into the video and you haven't fallen asleep yet, then I am majorly sorry. But you are obviously a part of the Jib Rules faithful, the real ones that stay and watch every single video all the way until the end. Right now on the Jib Rules channel, I am cooking up one of my favorite videos yet, talking about all the current best wingers in football right now. I can tell you for a fact it's going to be nearly 20 minutes long, and it's dropping one day or maybe 2 days after this video drops too. I'm really going to start taking, you know, this channel a lot more seriously, and even to the point where I might start consistently posting on my second channel. So please give that a like, give that a subscribe, give that a follow, whatever you guys can do. Jib Rules is going to be, you know, in the description. Go and subscribe over there, because I'm going to be dropping all sorts of videos, and they're not going to be football related. So if you just mess with Jib, you know, on a personal level, then head over to that channel and let's get things rolling. I'm going to be making all sorts of videos on that side. But yeah, enough of my rambling. You guys have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you, or rest of your night. Good night.